From the UNTV News and Rescue Command Center in Quezon City, this is Y News.
Tonight on Y News, President Rodrigo Duterte sticks to his prepared speech for the State of the Nation address that lasted for nearly 50 minutes. Pre-SONA tension confuses public on House speakership. And pro and anti-Duterte rally held in different parts of Metro Manila. Good evening. President Rodrigo Duterte delivered a 48-minute expletive-free speech during his third State of the Nation address. The president drew 34 applauses from the audience as he detailed the accomplishments of his administration and laid out his plans for his remaining term. Known for his long impromptu speeches, Duterte was able to stick to his prepared speech except for a few ad-libs. Tensions flares in the House of Representatives just hours before the State of the Nation address of President Rodrigo Duterte. Here's why from Grace Casin live. Yes, Grace, good evening.
Yes, good evening. Rheena, session of the House of Representatives was abruptly adjourned a few hours before 12 in the afternoon after almost an hour of talks among its members. A few minutes after the adjournment, some lawmakers are asked to return to the session hall to sign a petition seeking to oust House Speaker Pantalon Alvarez and to nominate Pampanga Representative Gloria Macapagal Arroyo as his replacement. The document stated the need for a credible and competent House leadership to guide the discussions on the pending issues and a need for a more proactive legislative agenda to safeguard the economy and the Constitution. By 3:30 p.m., Camarines Sur Representative Rolando Andaya announced that the group gathered enough number for the ouster move. A live video feed from RTVM also showed Arroyo going up the podium as if practicing the role of the House Speaker. It was followed by the group of Arroyo supporters seemingly swearing in Arroyo as the new House Speaker. However, there was no audio coming inside the session hall. The said lawmakers are also faced the challenge on whether they are allowed by the House rules to call for the resumption of the session to accommodate the move to change the House leadership. The oust Alvarez plot delayed the president's SONA, which was supposed to start at 4 p.m. After the SONA, congressmen pushing for the change in leadership gathered again in the plenary and conducted their own SONA, even without the maze and the sound system. More than 180 House members signed the manifesto supporting the move to elect Pampanga Representative Gloria Arroyo as the new House Speaker. But according to Independent Minority Leader Albay, Representative Edsel Lagman, the move is just a waste of time as it is not official.
There are no members of the Secretariat to record in the journal what is being done. There is even no sound system. We are shouting here. Then there are no rules being followed. Walang say-say doon.
Amid the move to oust House Speaker Alvarez, Congresswoman Arroyo has yet to issue an official statement on the matter despite request for a media interview. And that's the latest. Back to you, Rheena.
Thank you so much, Grace Casin, reporting live from the House of Representatives. Meanwhile, various militant groups have gathered along Commonwealth Avenue in Quezon City in what they claim as the biggest protest rally during a presidential State of the Nation address. Monokson tells us why.
Different militant groups trooped to the Commonwealth Avenue in Quezon City today to express their opposition and sentiments against the policies and programs implemented by the Duterte administration. Dubbed as the United People's SONA, the organizers of the movement claim that this is the biggest demonstration to be held during a presidential State of the Nation address. Based on the monitoring of the Philippine National Police Command Post, the number of anti-Duterte protesters reached 9,480. The groups brought with them some banners and placards, reiterating their call on the government to end the labor contractualization scheme and to increase the workers' pay, among others. They also hit the Duterte administration for implementing policies that allegedly promoted inflation acceleration, which they claim to have further burdened the poor.
Ito na yung simula ng unting-unting pagkawala ng popularity at suporta kay Duterte. Hindi naman niya kayang sagaan sa SONA ang katotohanan eh. Ang katotohanan, gutom ang taong bayan. Ang katotohanan, grabe ang kahirapan. Ang katotohanan, grabe ang nangyayari sa bansa ngayon.
Ousted Supreme Court Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Serena also joined the anti-SONA protests earlier to slam the government's bid to shift to federalism and to change the charter.
Wala akong nakikitang proteksyon na sufisyente ang taong bayan. Kaya kailangan natin sabay-sabay tutulong talaga. Hindi ito ang makatarungang paraan para bigyan ng tulong ang mga probinsya.
The groups also held a program earlier where they burned some effigies, including one they dubbed as Duterte. They say this symbolizes the administration policies that only lead to public sufferings. After the President's SONA, the groups then ended their program and dispersed. To date, the authorities have reported no injuries during the anti-SONA protests. Mon Hokson, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
A group of establishment owners in Boracay Island expresses disappointment in relation to the SONA of President Duterte. Here's why from Vincent Arboleda live. Yes, Vincent.
Yes, Rheena, some people in Boracay Island intend to listen to President Rodrigo Duterte as he delivers his State of the Nation's address. Though the Boracay Island was mentioned during the SONA earlier, there was no mention on the island's official date of reopening to tourists. According to Ninette Graf, the president of Boracay Foundation Incorporated, this is one of the issues they were anticipating to hear during the president's speech.
We were expecting that he will officially announce the opening of Boracay. Yun yung inaasahan namin eh. Hindi niya sinabi, so tingnan natin.
But apart from this, Graf agrees with the chief executive's statement urging the local government units to proactively implement the laws in their respective areas. Graf adds that their group will issue a statement bearing their sentiments on the government's rehabilitation efforts in Boracay. The residents, meanwhile, are also asking the president to speed up the rehabilitation efforts in the island so they could return to their normal way of living. Earlier, President Rodrigo Duterte mentioned in his SONA that he could not allow the decay of Boracay Island to continue, thereby prompting the closure of the island. He also said the ongoing rehabilitation efforts in the island is already long overdue. The president also mentioned that the rehab efforts in Boracay is the beginning of a national effort wherein other tourist destinations in the country will follow suit. Rheena, the Boracay Island was closed beginning April 26 to give way for the rehabilitation after the DNR confirmed various violations committed against the environmental laws. And that's the latest live. Back to you, Rheena.
Thank you so much, Vincent Arboleda, live from Boracay. Up next on Y News. Enhanced Southwest monsoon leaves 4 dead. And former ASA finalist makes it to this year's grand finals. President Rodrigo Duterte warns government agencies with the most number of red tape-related reports from the public during his third State of the Nation address. The president also says he is willing to sign the Bangsamoro Organic Law despite the temporary setback. Rosalie Cos is at the House of Representatives to tell us why. Live. Yes, Rosalie, good evening.
Good evening, Rheena. President Rodrigo Duterte did not fail to mention his continuing campaign against corruption in his third State of the Nation address. This time, he issued another warning against government agencies who do not adhere with the government policies in making business in the country simpler and easier. The chief executive also issued a stern warning against government agencies, particularly under the executive branch, which were reported by the public with the most number of red tape complaints.
I particularly call the attention of the agencies with the number of red tape-related reports from the public. Make your services truly customer-friendly. Our people deserve efficient, effective, and responsive government services.
He also directed all local government units to implement the law on ease of doing business and make the process simpler. He also lamented the Friendship Sea loss because of his anti-corruption campaign. He said he had to fire several high-ranking officials who were close to him before because of corruption allegations.
I value friendship. Make no mistake about it, but it has its limits. This is a lonely place I am hemmed in. Do not make it lonelier by forcing me to end our friendship because you gave me the reason to end it.
Meanwhile, despite the non-ratification of the Bangsamoro Organic Law by the House of Representatives, the chief executive assures he will sign the law within 48 hours or in 2 days. This after both houses of Congress ratified the BOL.
When the approved version is transmitted and received by my office, the law has been passed actually, and I intend to give me 48 hours to sign it and ratify the law. Babasahin ko pa bago ako pipirmahan. Baka may siningit kayo dyan na hindi maganda para sa ibang tao.
Meanwhile, Rheena, according to the Presidential Communications Operations Office, President Duterte is set to go back to Davao City tonight. His next public engagement will be on Wednesday in his hometown. Back to you, Rheena.
Thank you so much for that report, Rosalie Cos from the House of Representatives. The Philippine National Police is looking to lift on Tuesday the full alert status it raised for the third State of the Nation address of President Rodrigo Duterte. It also describes the event as generally peaceful despite protests mounted by various groups. Leia Ilagan explains why.
The Philippine National Police tout the effectivity of the security plans it implemented for the State of the Nation address of President Rodrigo Duterte. According to National Capital Region Police Office Director, Police Chief Superintendent Guillermo Eleazar, no untoward incident has been recorded earlier despite the massive protest staged by various militant groups. Eleazar notes that the overall situation remained peaceful and orderly, though no barbed wires and container vans were placed in the protest area, with cops only bringing truncheons.
Ang naging aming instrumento ay pakipag-usap sa mga leaders ng iba't ibang grupo. Dahil nagkaroon ng pag-uusap, nagkaroon ng kasunduan, at naglatag tayo ng mga guidelines at panuntunan na sinusunod ng bawat isa.
The police official adds that 20 representatives from the Commission of Human Rights and 45 human rights officers from Camp Crame and NCRPO were also deployed to monitor any human rights violation.
Pag may nakikita tayong mga ganyan na lumalabag sa mga karapatang patao, hindi naman natin pinalalampas yan. So, kinukuha natin yung mga pangalan nila para maturuan o mapagsabihan at mapailan din ng mga kaso.
In line with this, the PNP is looking to lift the full alert status it raised nationwide on Tuesday after the SONA. PNP Chief Police Director General Oscar Albayalde meanwhile thanks President Rodrigo Duterte for his support to the uniformed forces, citing asset modernization and salary increase.
It is during his time na ang laki ng aming capability enhancement program. Meron na kaming mga logistical supports ngayon na yung mga mobile cars lang natin, lahat na ng PCP all over the country meron na.
Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue, Quezon City.
President Duterte still pursues the administration's independent foreign policy amid criticisms and lives an assurance that the rights of the country in the West Philippine Sea will not be set aside. Nel Maribok is at the House of Representatives to tell us why. Live. Yes, Nel?
Good evening, Rheena. President Rodrigo Duterte has once again emphasized its policy of the country's friendship with China and pursues the government's independent foreign policy, assuring that it will not be changed amid criticisms.
We shall continue to assert and pursue an independent foreign policy. Our long-term national development and national security goals come first.
The President said during his State of the Nation address that his policy already had good results. This includes strengthening ties with other neighboring countries, particularly in the ASEAN region. The country already conducted trilateral border patrol with Malaysia and Indonesia in fighting terrorism and human trafficking. He said the opening of communication with China gave positive outcome in terms of fishing in the disputed waters. The President also said that the dialogue between China and the ASEAN resulted in the crafting of a draft framework for the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea, which will resolve the dispute in a peaceful manner. President Duterte assures that despite the good friendship with China, he will not surrender the rights of the country in the region.
Our improved relationship with China, however, does not mean that we will waver in our commitment to defend our interests in the West Philippine Sea. This is why we engage China through this bilateral and multilateral platform such as the ASEAN-China and the Philippines-China bilateral consultation mechanism.
But some senators are not contented with the President's pronouncement regarding the West Philippine Sea issue.
Pero yung sinabi din ni Presidente na we will still uphold our national interests, hindi pa rin makita yon.
Buti yung sinabi niya na atin yon, pero gusto ko sanang konkretong mga detalye. Anong gagawin natin? Sabi niya meron daw multilateral and bilateral peace talks. Paano yung ruling ng international courts?
The President already said that in the right time he will raise the issues on arbitration ruling to China, but some critics are still puzzled on the President's pronouncement in pursuing our claims in the West Philippine Sea. Rheena?
Thank you so much, Nel Maribojo. The Presidential Communications Operations Office is still investigating at least 5 of its employees tagged in the allegedly irregular procurement of goods and services used for the country's hosting of the 2017 ASEAN Summit. Contracts entered into by the agency for the summit hosting is also being reviewed. The Commission on Audit said in its 2017 report that the PCOO awarded contracts to suppliers without adhering to the Government Procurement Act provision. It also said that of the 219 million peso ASEAN fund, over 38 million pesos was found questionable. But PCOO Assistant Secretary Ana Marie Banaag clarifies that the amount reported in the media was not just used by the PCOO but all the agencies under its wing, including PTV4, Radio Pilipinas, Philippine Information Agency, and RTVM. Assistant Secretary Banaag also assures involved persons and agencies are cooperating with the investigation.
Yes, they are participating with the investigation, and we'd like to reiterate na para din po malinis ang pangalan po ng mga hindi gumawa or yung mga may aligasyon sa kanila.
Meanwhile, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council confirms that 4 persons have been killed due to the effects of the southwest monsoon enhanced by the tropical cyclones Henry, Inday, and Josie. Based on the latest figures from the NDRRMC, the fatalities were reported in Cebu, Calabarzon, Cordillera, and National Capital regions. 1 person was reportedly injured and 2 others are missing. Meanwhile, damage to infrastructure and agriculture in affected areas in Central and North Luzon are nearing the 400 million peso mark. To date, 7 cities or municipalities in the said areas have been placed under the state of calamity. In other news, residents in Cavite province returned to their homes as local authorities rushed to clear the waterways and other areas inundated by floods. Here's why from Vincent Arboleda.
Floodwaters that submerged parts of the Cavite province on Sunday due to incessant rains have begun to subside, allowing residents to return to their homes and roads to be open to traffic. Over the weekend, some residents were forced to flee their homes on board 6x6 trucks as rising water levels burst the banks of some rivers like in Noveleta.
But some of the families po, yung ilan ay nagbabalik na rin po sa kanilang mga bahay. Pero yung iba po ay nasa mga evacuation centers pa rin.
According to Tricia Flores, Public Relations Officer 3 of the Cavite Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction Management Office, all roads are now passable to vehicles based on the reports of local authorities. No casualty has been reported amid the monsoon rains, but the whole province is still under a state of calamity due to the damage sustained, especially in coastal communities. Local authorities are presently rushing to clear the waterways and drainages as another weather disturbance threatens to dump more rains in the Philippine area of responsibility.
Si Inday dumating, nagbanta ng pagbaha. Although bumaha na rin, napuno si drainage. Sabay dating ni Josie, kaya napakabilis lumaki. Mabilisan, kasi ayan na papunta na naman si Carding, natatanaw pa lang si Carding, kaya unahan namin si Carding.
The local government also encourages the public in need of assistance to call the Cavite PDRRMO hotline 419-3354 or 419-1652 or send them a message through cell phone numbers 0917-524-2952 or 0998-889-1407. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
A former Song of Praise or ASO finalist makes it to this year's Grand Finals. Leslie Lumboan tells us why.
Composer Joyner Dizon and his interpreter Dan Biliano touched the hearts of many through the song Sumasamba Sayo, a Grand Finals entry from a Song of Praise or ASO Year 6. And last night, the two were back on the show's monthly finals for another pop rock entry entitled Makikita Kita. The song was hailed as July monthly winner after earning positive comments from the judges.
Nakagawa ka ng magandang kanta na epektibo na kanta about hope, pag-asa. And we really need songs that give hope and light during these tough and dark times. So, ang ganda ng areglo.
I love the genre, Joyner. Hindi pangkaraniwan na a song of praise, is pop rock, 'di ba? Tapos ang ganda ng recall.
Joyner shares he wants to give hope through his new composition.
Para po sa lahat ng mga tao na sa buhay na ito ay mas pinili nilang paglingkuran ng Diyos sa kabila ng mga pagsubok, mga dadanasing mga kahirapan. Dahil nang hahawak sila sa isang pag-asang darating ang isang araw na makikita nila ang Diyos.
Leslie Lomboan, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Up next on Y News. 2 dead, including gunman, after 15 people shot in downtown Toronto. And French President Emmanuel Macron orders office reorganization over protester beating Roe.
Good evening. Y News continues. President Rodrigo Duterte rejects calls to suspend the implementation of the tax reform for acceleration and inclusion or TRAIN law. Joanne Nano will tell us why live from the House of Representatives. Yes, Joanne, good evening.
Yes, good evening, William. President Rodrigo Duterte will still continue the implementation of the tax reform for acceleration and inclusion or TRAIN law despite mounting calls to halt its imposition. During his third State of the Nation address, the chief executive stresses he cannot and will not suspend the law amid inflation and the rising prices of fuel products because the country needs this to sustain its growth. The president also insists that the tax reform law has been helping poor families and senior citizens cope with the rising prices. He adds that some have incorrectly blamed the government's efforts towards a fairer tax system for the price increases in the past months and called those suggesting to stop the train law's implementation as irresponsible. He also urged the Congress to pass the second train package this year. The president reports that the government will be giving 149 billion peso worth of subsidies to around 4 million people this year under the unconditional cash transfer program, while the government is also targeting to increase the budget into 169 billion pesos by next year. He also made mention on the distribution of fuel vouchers to legitimate jeepney operators to help them cope with the rising fuel prices. But the president says no amount of subsidy can help the poor if some businesses will take advantage of the situation and make more money. He asked the businessman to cooperate with the government in charging a fair price. It can be recalled that several groups and lawmakers have called for the suspension of the train law, claiming its negative effect to consumers and transport groups. And that is the latest live here in the House of Representatives. Back to you, William.
Thank you very much, Joanne Nano, live from the House of Representatives. Meanwhile, some Filipinos express satisfaction while some are dismayed after hearing President Rodrigo Duterte's third State of the Nation address. Mai Bermudez tells us why live. Yes, Mai, good evening.
William, unlike the past SONAs, President Rodrigo Duterte changed his tone and turned more serious as he delivered his third State of the Nation address. And after that, Filipinos weighed in and gave their thoughts on how they find the chief executive's speech. 65-year-old Reggie Gonzaga didn't miss even 1 second to hear the chief executive's promises and recent accomplishments.
Okay naman, kaso hindi ako masyadong natuwa eh. Walang katatawaran masyado.
Jeepney drivers inside Commonwealth Transport Cooperative Terminal in Novaliches, Quezon City even lauded Duterte as he ended his speech.
Maganda po yung sinabi ni Pangulong Duterte at sana po magtulong-tulong po tayo para tulungan natin ng jeepney modernization na sinusulong ni Pangulong Duterte.
Sana huwag na masyadong pahirapan yung ating mga kababayan, lalo-lalo yung mga tulad namin mga driver. Paano naman pag nangyari yun, maraming magugutom.
If some intently watch the president as he details his plans and accomplishments, there are also those who missed this year's SONA.
Kakauwi ko lang.
Hindi ko ma'am kasi iniwanan ko kanina ma'am eh.
William, those were just some of the reactions of Filipinos as we roamed around Quezon City area earlier. And for them, they really hope that President Duterte will fulfill his promises as he entered his third year. Back to you, Will.
Thank you very much. Mai Bermudez, live from Quezon City. Groups supporting the Duterte administration applaud the accomplishments and plans that President Rodrigo Duterte mentioned in his SONA earlier. Aiko Miguel will tell us why live from Commonwealth. Yes, Aiko, good evening.
Yes, William, good evening. The supporters of President Rodrigo Duterte also took the streets today to match the protests mounted by opposition groups. They converged at the Batasan Road since 9 this morning, where they awaited and watched the chief executive's third State of the Nation address. During an interview with the media after the SONA, they expressed satisfaction over the president's report and the plans he mentioned for his remaining term. Among those they lauded are the chief executive's plan against environmental abuse due to mining and his promise of relentless anti-drug campaign.
Kami po ay natutuwa sapagkat doon po sa State of the Nation address ng ating presidente ay kanyang ipinagdiinan na ipagpapatuloy niya yung kanyang mga advokasya na siya namang sinuportahan ng marami. At ito nga po ang dahilan kung bakit kami nandito ngayon, dahil gusto namin ipakita ang pagsuporta namin sa mga polisiya at programa ng ating presidente.
They also support the president's plea to Congress to approve a measure that will effectively end the labor contractualization scheme. Rallying pro-Duterte groups are composed of residents and some representatives from the government agencies. They are also joined by Muslim associations holding banners calling for the swift enactment of the Bangsamoro Organic Law. William, as of the moment, the group or the pro-Duterte groups has already ended their program as they have understood that President Rodrigo Duterte has still to stay at the House of Representatives to meet the other government officials. And that is the latest live. Back to you, William.
Thank you very much, Aiko Miguel, live from Commonwealth Avenue. This just in, Pampanga Representative Gloria Macapagal Arroyo is the new House Speaker replacing Congressman Pantaleon Alvarez after winning 184 votes with 12 abstentions. Tropical Depression Josie exited the country earlier today, but we still expect rains to continue in areas of the country. Leslie Longbowen is at the UNTV Weather Center to tell us why. Leslie?
Yes, good evening. After Tropical Depression Josie, Pag-asa eyes another storm to develop from a low-pressure area. The LPA is expected to enter the Philippine area of responsibility tomorrow, and as of now, it is not affecting the country yet. Meanwhile, southwest monsoon continues to affect Luzon and Visayas. This will bring rains over Zambales, Bataan, Cavite, Batangas, Mindoro, and Palawan. Occasional rains will also be experienced over Metro Manila, Ilocos Region, Cordillera Administrative Region, Central Luzon, and Western Visayas. Meanwhile, the rest of Luzon and Eastern Visayas will be under cloudy skies with scattered rain showers and thunderstorms. The rest of the country will experience fair weather. Tomorrow, the sun is expected to rise at 5:37 in the morning. That's the weather forecast. Back to the studio.
Thank you very much, Leslie Longbowen from the UNTV Weather Center. U.S. President Donald Trump and Iranian President Hassan Rouhani have traded hostile warnings amid rising tensions between the two countries. In a tweet, Trump warns Iran of consequences like the ones which few have ever suffered before throughout history if it threatens the U.S. Rouhani earlier said that war with Iran would be the mother of all wars. In May, the U.S. left a deal which curbed Iran's nuclear activities in return for the lifting of international sanctions. Washington is now reimposing the sanctions despite objections from the UK, France, China, Russia, and Germany, who all signed the 2015 agreement. In other news, 2 people were killed and 13 others were injured in a shooting rampage in Toronto, Canada. Police say a motive is yet to be identified for the incident, which came after its anti-violence initiative began in the city. Noel Poliarco tells us why.
A shooting rampage happened here in Toronto's Bricktown district, killing 2 people, including the gunman. The shooting happened in the Danforth and Logan Avenue area on Sunday night. Toronto police say that 13 people were being treated in a hospital. 7 are in critical condition, including a 9-year-old girl. No other details are immediately available, including the nationality of the most of the victims. Witnesses described hearing about 20 shots and the sound of a weapon being reloaded several times.
I thought it was fireworks at first, because it was a rapid fire, and then there'd be a pause and some more fire. We didn't know what it was. We saw people starting to run in our direction, and I still didn't know what it was. And
during the moment, it was just kind of, what's my safest option, where to go?
According to local media, the suspect is believed to have opened fire to the police before killing himself. Toronto Mayor Jan Tory says it is too early to provide a motive for the shooting.
People should not reach any conclusions because the police themselves have not drawn any conclusions as to exactly what happened here and why. And I certainly have confidence, as I'm sure the people of Toronto do, that our police chief and all of his men and women will get to the bottom of this and determine what happened here.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford tweeted out a message of solidarity with the victims and described the incidents in Toronto as a horrific act of gun violence. Sunday night shooting came just days after Toronto police began an anti-violence initiative that saw an additional 200 officers working in the night shift in the city, a response to an especially violent summer in Toronto that's seen numerous people gunned down. Noel Poliarco, UNTV, News and Rescue, Toronto, Canada.
More than a dozen people were killed in an explosion in Kabul airport following the return of exiled Afghan Vice President Abdul Rashid Dostum. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron orders office reorganization after reports on protester beating Roe. Beverly Saison tells us why.
In Afghanistan, 14 people have died in a blast which rocked Kabul airport shortly after Afghan Vice President Abdul Rashid Dostum returned from self-imposed exile. According to police, General Dostum was unhurt in the attack on a square he had just passed through. He left Turkey for more than a year ago after he was accused of ordering his men to kidnap and rape a political rival, which he denies. Militant group Islamic State claims it carried out the attack. In Israel, the Israeli army on Sunday distributed a footage showing an overnight operation to evacuate Syrian white helmets through Israel to Jordan. Hundreds of members of Syria's White Helmet Civil Defense Group and their families fled advancing government forces and slipped over the border into Jordan overnight with the help of Israeli soldiers and Western powers. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said in a brief video statement that he had acted on the request of U.S. President Donald Trump and other leaders. And in France, French President Emmanuel Macron orders his staff shake-up after a video emerged showing his now sacked aide beating up a protester, official says. Under growing pressure, Macron gathered several ministers together on Sunday to discuss the row. Alexandre Benaya, who was Macron's top bodyguard, is seen in the video dragging away a woman and then beating a man during May Day protests in Paris. He's now facing charges on group violence and for illegally wearing a police badge. Benaya was fired on Friday. An official says Macron had described the incident unacceptable and promised there would be no impunity. Beverly Saison, UNTV News and Rescue.
Highlights of President Rodrigo Duterte's State of the Nation address earlier.
The war against illegal drugs is far from over. The illegal drugs war will not be sidelined. Instead, it will be as relentless and chilling. If you think that I can be dissuaded from continuing this fight because of our demonstrations, your protests, then you got it all wrong. Your concern is human rights. Mine is human lives. And I hereby direct all government units, makinig sana kayo, and government agencies to faithfully implement this law and simply simplify the process. I value friendship. Make no mistake about it, but it has its limits. This is a lonely place I am hemmed in. Do not make it lonelier by forcing me to end our friendship because you gave me the reason to end it. Our improved relationship with China, however, does not mean that we will waver in our commitment to defend our interests in the West Philippine Sea. We admire our Filipino migrant workers for their selflessness and courage in enduring the hardships of living away from home to provide for their families. You epitomize the innate resilience of the nation. I urge you, Congress, to convene the bilateral conference committee and pass at the soonest possible time the bill establishing the Coconut Farmers Trust Fund. I therefore urge the Senate urgently pass the National Land Use Act to put in place a national land use policy that will address our competing land requirements for food, housing, business, and environmental conservation. We in the Cabinet have approved for immediate endorsement to Congress the passage of a law creating the Department of Disaster Management. By the end of July 2018, all 5 packages of my tax reform would have been submitted to Congress. Apart from train, rice tarification, and package, that if I were to try to read, much less answer all attacks made on me, this shop, the presidency, might as well be closed for any other business. I do the very best I know how, the very best I can, and I mean to keep doing so until the end. If the end brings me out all right, what has been said against me won't amount to anything.
And those are the reasons behind the news, July 23, 2018. On behalf of Rheena, Villamor-Camara, I am Thio. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Good evening.